listening to the Podcast Advertising Playbook, your resource to better understand and execute successful podcast ad campaigns. Hello and welcome to the Podcast Advertising Playbook. I'm your host, Heather Osgood. Today, I am joined by Jeff Stormer. He is the Talent Development Manager at True Native Media. Jeff, welcome to the program.
Hello, it's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
So Jeff, you joined our team, and I should know this off the top of my head, but it's been like maybe 6 months ago?
We just passed the 6-month mark. Is this not our 6-month review? I thought that's what we were doing here today.
Oh, yes. I usually do those in public. I forgot to tell you.
It's an effective tactic, I think. I think it works.
So tell us a little bit about kind of what led you to the world of podcasting.
For sure. I mean, I think that's interesting because there's kind of two answers to that question. There's what drove me to podcast advertising, which is what drove me here. And the answer to that is that I've been podcasting as a show host and producer for coming up on 10 years now. That number keeps getting a little bit closer and a little bit closer, and I feel extremely normal about it. But what drove me to podcasting in general is I've realized over the years that the thing that I love more than anything is getting to know people through conversation and getting to chat with people and getting to hear people's perspectives and getting to share those conversations with people. And so it was a very natural fit once we, my wife, who's the producer of several of the podcasts that I produce, once we started making podcasts together, it was a very natural fit of getting to know people, having conversations with people and sharing these sorts of experiences. And that's been the thing that has kept me coming back to podcasting over the years. And, since joining the team and since joining True Native, that's been the thing that has been really gratifying about my role here, has been getting to know people, having these conversations and getting to, help them along the way.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't realize that your wife helps you produce your shows. That's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's a really nice, it's become a really nice creative exercise for the two of us to share together. She's the invisible hand that makes all of the podcasting happen. We couldn't do it without her. I'm very grateful for her, everything that she does. And it gives us a nice project to share together. This is our version of maintaining a garden.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that. And I agree with you. I mean, for me, obviously, there are so many great things about podcasting, but I just love the conversations. And I feel like there's always so many discussions about, should you start an interview show? Should you not? Are they overdone? But I love conversation. And I think that it's so cool. Number one, that you can have a public conversation with someone that has, really shared values with you, or maybe somebody that has opposing values to you, and you're able to, kind of hack it out in public. But I think that it's really neat to be a fly on the wall and just listen to someone's conversation and see how it kind of flows. It sounds like that's what really kind of attracted you to the industry.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's always a moment, especially when a podcast is going, even if it's scripted, even if it's under a very specific niche, there's always a moment where kind of a real self or a true self slips through a little bit. And I think that's a really beautiful and wonderful moment. And that's something that I'm always kind of chasing after with my work and with the conversations that I'm having with podcasters. I think, we'll come back to the word authenticity a lot over this conversation. And I think it's a thing that makes the work of podcasting really shine, is when you get to see that authentic self peek through a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm curious, I feel like we've been talking about video so much in the space lately. And I was talking to a producer the other day, and she commented that when you're just using audio, that you really have the ability to let someone's authentic self come through, that when someone's not camera ready, or, maybe when you are just doing audio, people have a tendency to let their guard down a bit and to be more real. Have you noticed that?
It's so funny you mentioned that. Yes, to an extreme degree. It was actually a really conscious decision that we made with one of the podcasts that we produce, which is an interview show that goes to very kind of vulnerable places and very kind of intimate places with our guests. We kind of had the video discussion at one point, and that was the exact thing we landed on, was I want my guests to feel comfortable letting their guard down. I want them to feel comfortable being a little bit more vulnerable, being a little bit less guarded And what we realized was the ability to like show your emotion in whatever form that is going to take is really most kind of effective when you don't have a big bright light and a camera right like six
Right.
inches from your face. And so we really consciously made that decision to not make the video leap because we said this is a safety like measure for our guests so that they can be as if they want to cry, great. If they want to laugh in a really outlandish way, great. Like we want that vulnerability, and so to achieve that in a like safe and respectful way, it meant that we were going to forego the video component.
Yeah, I think that it's just so interesting. And obviously there's so many great things about video. We're recording in video now. And I do love the connection that you
Mm-hmm.
make with someone when you have them on video in a conversation. But I just think that we can't lose sight of the power of audio and the thing that audio can do by itself that video can't do. And I think that that's really gotten lost in the conversation in the industry lately.
I agree, 100%. I think there's a lot of things that audio brings to the table. And, to put it bluntly, I got into podcasting because it's a thing I can do in my pajamas. And I feel like I've lost
Sure.
that a little bit. And that's been the thing that I rage against more than anything.
No, no, for sure. So, Jeff, tell us a little bit about what your role is at True Native Media.
For sure. As talent development manager, I am functionally, I always say that the phrase is I'm the guy on the inside. I wear a few different hats that kind of starts with recruitment of new shows onto the roster into like once a show signs or once a creator like signs with us, I'm kind of their point of contact to manage that relationship moving forward. I connect them
Hmm.
with the sales team and the operations team and kind of answer any questions that they have. And then conversely, any questions that come up internally, I share with them or any updates. And then kind of take all of that information. And then the third hat is sort of like managing that on our internal systems to reflect all of the conversations, all of the latest and greatest information to make sure that we are as connected to our hosts as possible. So it really is from like first point of contact with the company through long-term relationship. Like I am your guy on the inside.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. What I loved so much about you, and part of the reason that I wanted to bring you on the team, is that you can empathize with the creator so well because you're a creator yourself. Kind of being in that space and, being in podcasting, like you said, for nearly 10 years, what are some things that you have kind of seen change from the creator perspective when they're, maybe looking at how advertising has evolved? Do you feel like the mindset has shifted at all for creators?
I do. I think the biggest way that I've seen it shift is like there's been a growth in sort of a like an influencer mindset around changing the I guess like the center point of like where the creator sees the value or the connection point of the advertisement of the connection to the audience. And I think it's really exciting both from an advertising and a creator perspective. I'm seeing a lot more people center themselves rather than the platform or the product that they create. So we're seeing a lot more, from an ad sales perspective, we're seeing a lot more like bundling of newsletters and YouTube and social media and like more creators going like this is me, this is all of the places that I live, and this is where the advertisement is centered on is me and my expertise and my influencer status, as opposed to I have each of these individual channels and I'm trying to kind of scobble them together to present like individual niche opportunities. It's saying like no, these are all connected by way of they are connected to me and my voice and my perspective.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think, that's something I've talked a bit about on this show is just really the mindset. And I talk about it internally as well, but the mindset of shifting from we work with podcasters to we work with content creators. And while podcasting is always going to be the tent pole of the organization, it's so valuable to realize that, most creators out there aren't just producing a podcast, and many advertisers are looking for integrated campaigns. So it's interesting. And I know we obviously have discussed video, but it's interesting to see, I think, how the industry as a whole is evolving. And I push so heavily on the idea that we really are sitting further in the influencer space than anyone wants to admit for some reason to me. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a dirty word. I think it's developed a
Mm,
connotation, but I think that it's 100% true. And I think what it really does is empower the creators and empower the people that we work with, because it's saying like, you know, there is a very frequent thing that I've heard over the years. I've always heard people say like, "Oh, well, my show is my thing, and my show is this," and like, I'm like, "No, you're the thing. Like,
right.
you are the centerpiece." And like, it's I always point, think about the idea that like 10 people can make 10 podcasts with the exact same prompt, premise, guests, everything, and they would be 10 different shows because they are 10 different creators with different sets of experiences, different expertise, different like perspectives, and those shows will come out different on the other side. And so it's only
Mhm.
natural to then say you are the anchor point, like you are the thing that makes this different and unique, and that's going to be true across your videos, across your social, across your newsletters, across your podcast. Like you are the connective tissue, and I think it empowers creators to like own all of their work a little bit more when
Mhm.
they can say like I am selling this, and I'm coming to this conversation as the center point, as the differentiator, as the thing that is bringing value to this. I think it you come away from it feeling more empowered and feeling more in control, and I think that's only a good thing for negotiation. It's only a good thing for audience connection. It's only a good thing for podcasting as a whole.
Mhm. Agreed. Agreed. Yeah. So when you're evaluating a podcast to bring them on for representation at True Native, what are you looking for?
So obviously there's the easy stuff, right? There's the numbers, right? We've got the numbers that we look for. We've got the genres that we work very well with, your business
Mhm.
shows, your health and wellness, true crime, comedy, sports. Like there are the easy things to check off, right? There are
Mhm.
the easy things to mark off. And then there are kind of the intangibles. And I think the intangibles are where things get really interesting. Because we're looking for things like as we listen to the show, as we have conversation, we're like getting into questions around, is this host authentic? Are they comfortable? Are they invested? How do they communicate, right? Like we know that our advertisers are going to want to be able to like share information and like get a quick response. And so we're looking
Mhm.
for that sort of communicative attitude, and I think a big thing is like, are they excited to be selling ads, or like can we bring them around to that, because that's going to translate through the ad itself, right? Like if you're talking to somebody and it's clear you don't want to be here, your
Mhm.
audience is going to hear that, and it's going to affect the quality of the ad. And then like listening through, the show's content to confirm things like, is there a consistent release schedule? Like, are there inexplicable gaps in the backlog? Is the content ad friendly? Is it something that an advertiser is going to want to put their
Mhm.
rubber stamp on? The intangibles, I think, are where things get really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I love that you bring up, does the podcaster actually want advertisers? And it's so interesting to me because I have found throughout the years that there are definitely podcasters that will come to us. They'll say, we want advertisers. But then when the rubber meets the road, number one, maybe they turn down like 90% of
Mm-hmm.
the advertisers we bring them. Or number two, you can tell that they're phoning it in, or they apologize to their, audience. I'm so sorry that we have to do this ad read, but like, let's go ahead and do it. And the way that I always have approached advertising is that we all want to purchase goods and services, right? We live in a very consumer driven reality here in the United States, but we all buy lots of things. And if I can get a recommendation from somebody that I know, like, and trust about a product that they have vetted fairly thoroughly, I would much prefer that. And I would rather buy a product from someone who has looked into the company and looked into the product and tried the product out than just going online, or going on Instagram and saying, well, I guess I'm going to try this thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, the reality is that endorsement really goes a long way, and I think that it can be of value to the audience. But for some reason, some podcasters really think that advertising is not something that is of value to their audience. What are your thoughts about that?
I think really on some level, like I see it as, and this is a drum that I beat in every aspect of my life as a podcaster. I see it as an honesty thing. I see it
Hmm.
as like like an honesty with self more than anything, which is like a lot of podcasters, a lot of creatives, a lot of people who make things in general. I find get very hesitant to say explicitly what they want from the work that they're doing, or like what
Mm,
success means, or like what they're after. And so what happens when you can't just say out loud, this is what I want and this is what I'm going after and this is what success looks like, is you get into a position where you make decisions where you're like, I guess I have to do this. I guess
mhm,
this is how I grow, or I guess this is the next step. And I think there are cases where, a podcaster, I've seen this happen. I know this has happened in both in a work capacity and a non-work capacity. Like, you have podcasters who will say like, oh, well, I guess I got to do this. I guess this is the next step
mhm,
to grow the show or to expand the show, which leads to like, I guess I got to take on ads. I don't really want to, so I'm going to like
mhm.
sign an ad partnership and read ad reads, but it's going to be like I'm pulling teeth and I'm going to have a bad time. The audience is going to have a bad time. It's going to be a bad experience. Where if you can say outright, like either, and there are cases where this is going to go both ways. If you can say either, like, the thing that defines growth to me is I want to be able to generate income through this. I want to be able to like offer products and services that I value to my audience and like leverage that connection to like monetize the show. Great. If you can be explicit about that, like, I don't think there's any problem with that. I don't think there's any shame in it. I think that's the nature of work in a capitalist society. Or conversely, if you're like, hey, I'm in this for like the artistry and for like other things, if there's other
Right.
things that success looks like, then you don't have to go after advertising. There are plenty of other ways you can grow. You can maintain the show without monetizing. You can pursue other things. Like, it is saying upfront, this is what I want out of this experience, and not being afraid to rule out pieces of the podcasting experience accordingly.
Right, right. Well, and there are lots of ways to monetize a
For
podcast,
sure.
right? Like obviously this show is all about advertising and the value of advertising, and I see a lot of value there, but there are lots of ways to monetize your show. So I know that you had alluded to size as well. So at True Native Media, I feel like that's the question that I get most often whenever I talk about representation is how big does the podcast need to be in order to work with you? What sizes of shows are we looking for?
So our baseline is, across the entire backlog, since like most of what we do is dynamic ads, our baseline is 100,000 downloads a month. There's a little bit of flexibility in that based on genre. If there's like if it's within the spaces that we're really confident will sell consistently, but that's kind of our level line of this is what we think is going to really make an impact, because like there is work that goes into it from you as the creator for us, and that's kind of the line where we're able to say this is going to make a significant like impact to advertisers, to you as creator, and to us as your ad partner.
hmm So, one of the things that I'm really excited about is that we are launching a new product called PodRamp. Really, we're going to be kind of dividing our creators into two segments. We're going to have PodRamp and Pod Premium. Can you tell us a little bit about what PodRamp is and what we're looking to achieve there?
Yeah, of course. PodRamp is sort of our way of partnering with like growing shows to like help them get into the world of podcast advertising and set them up for success. And sort of partner with them as they're growing. So it's a way for us to like bring on smaller shows, sort of shows around the like 10,000 downloads a month across their backlog and larger, to like as shows are growing and starting to find that audience. It gives us a way to like sort of prime them for advertising, so that when they get to that larger mark, we can really set them up with success with host read ads. So it allows us to partner with shows, bring them onto our roster, bring them onto our hosting platform, get them set up, get them ready to rock and roll, and start to like get those programmatic producer read ads loaded into the system so that their audience is getting comfortable with advertising. And
hmm
then it allows us to like set them up with some growth opportunities and promo opportunities, so that their show continues to grow, so that when they're finally like at that point where we're ready to really like bring them into Pod Premium, they are primed and ready for success.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that
I think
because
it's great.
yeah, when we started the company, the idea was that we could help smaller shows. And as we've grown, we've been really fortunate to be able to work with larger podcasts and want to continue to grow that side of the business and to, represent many large shows, right? I know that as a company, we have a goal to, really expand and grow. But on the flip side, there are so many terrific shows that just haven't hit that mark yet. And so I'm excited to be able to work with the smaller shows and work with them in a capacity that makes sense for them and makes sense for us. So it's going to be really, I think, a cool product for us to bring on.
I hope so.
Can you tell me, is there anything that you really look at to determine whether a podcast is kind of brand ready, or has the potential for advertisers? Like, what does that look like?
So there's two big things that kind of jump out to me, and these both come up as I'm listening to shows and also as I'm talking with content creators. The first one is excitement. We talked a little bit about this, but it is like, is the host not just interested in selling ads, not just seeing it as a business opportunity, but really like excited about it, right? Excited about
Hmm.
monetizing, excited about like growth opportunities, excited about bringing value to their audience, or conversely, like as we're talking, can I get them excited? That's part of the nature of the role and part of the sales process of like, hey, you should be excited about this if this is something that you're interested in, like that, because that excitement is infectious. It's going to pass on to the listener. It's going to make for better podcast ads, and it's going to make for a better experience. If it's something that you're
Hmm.
really excited about, you're going to respond to emails faster. You're going to like get things in place faster. You can get the vibe from talking to people when they are doing something that they're just not, they're doing because they're checking a box or they're doing because
Right.
they feel they have to. And it just makes the process a little slower. And in a field as fast moving as podcast advertising, that slows things down pretty dramatically.
Yes.
The other thing that I think is really valuable that I've kind of kept an eye on is a degree of specificity, like in conversations with hosts. A thing that really comes up that really is like a huge green flag to me is, are there brands that the host like wants to work with? We always kind of make sure to ask this
Mm.
in our initial conversations of like, hey, who would you like to work with in a perfect, if you were to envision selling ads, what would that look like? If they've got brands that they're like, oh, I would love to sell X, Y, and Z, like that's great. That's easy for, it sets us up for success because we can go knock on the doors of those brands, but also it tells me that you have put the thought into this and that you're really eager to go after this. And conversely, like obviously we don't want to see this too off, obviously this can go very easily overwhelming, but if you're specific about there are brands and categories that are not a fit for us that we don't want to see on the show,
Hmm.
like that again, we don't want to see somebody that turns down 90% of the ads that we pitch them. But if you have put the thought into like these are the things that are not going to work, that also tells me that there's an intentionality there that shows me that you're doing the work, you've put the thought into this, and you're like really taking this seriously. And that's going to make a big difference when we are in the weeds of the process, and it's really going to make an impact.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with you. I would say that one thing that I also look at that I think is really important is how engaged the audience is.
Sure,
And
sure.
I always tell hosts that you should gauge the engagement of your audience by doing something like asking them to take an action of some sort. So, whether that's signing up for a newsletter that you're putting together, or maybe entering a contest or completing a survey, you need, I think, as a host to have a level of communication that is a two-way street, right, with your audience. And obviously in podcasting, it really is very one way in the fact
Mhm.
that you, as the host, are creating a show, you're putting it out there, you're looking to see that people are consuming the content, which is great. But, and you've got the comment section, which is, it is what it is. But I think really making sure that you are able to ask your audience to take a specific action and then see that they are taking the action is really important, because if you ask them to do something and they don't do it, then you asking them to go and purchase a product isn't going to happen, right? So
Sure.
I think it's really valuable to make sure that you are engaging with your audience in a way that you have a relationship. And if you don't have that, I think you really, really need to build that, because that's the basis of everything. The other thing is along the lines of the 1,000 true fans that I think
Mhm.
we've all heard about is when you can create an audience that really is dedicated to you, that is just going to help you to grow to a level that allows you, I think, to just catapult your growth as a
Sure.
content creator.
I think that's where a podcast survey becomes really, really
Yeah.
valuable really, really quickly. It's always huge to me in conversations if someone says that they've run a survey either recently or period, because like it is an action that your audience is invested enough to take an action and fill out a thing. And then you get really valuable data on top of that. It is as much of a win-win as you can possibly muster.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, what are some of the most common questions that you get from hosts about ads, and what do you kind of do to make them feel comfortable about advertising?
The biggest question that I get, the thing that I run into the most is questions around, I'm excited about ads. I want to be running ads. And then you kind of run at it full speed. And then you face the question of like, what ads am I supposed to be selling? Like, what are my ad opportunities? And what I think I've run into really adjacent to that, and the thing that I've really tried to, assuage with hosts is podcasters who think that they can only really sell ads within the sort of hyper specific show niche that their show occupies.
Mm-hmm.
We run into this so often where like if we say, if a show is about investing or financials, we'll say, what are the ads that you would like to sell? We get a shrug and well, I don't know, ads about investing in financials. And like, yes, obviously that's like a great fit,
Mm-hmm.
but I think what we try to convey to like creators is it goes back to that centering of self, right? It is that sense of like you are the expert, and so your audience is here for your content. They're also here for you, and so there are so many ads that are maybe outside of the immediate field of your show that are so specifically relevant to you that when you record that ad read, your audience is going to take notice. I always think of the creators that we've talked to who will tell us in conversation like, oh, I just had my first kid, or oh, I just bought my first house, and being able to like turn around and go, hey, your show's not about this. But when
Mm-hmm.
your audience hears you talk about like raising your kid, they're going to take notice because they're with you on this journey, and being able to like bring that to a child care brand and say like, here's an opportunity, here's the host talking about it, you can hear the emotion in their voice. It creates an advertising experience that the listener is going to respond to. And so that field of ad possibilities is so much larger than I think a lot of shows or a lot of podcasters give themselves credit for.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably the biggest question that comes up and thing that we kind of like talk through in conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. And I think that it goes both ways, right? Often the podcaster thinks that they have to be, brands that are super aligned. And on the
Mm-hmm.
flip side, a lot of times brands feel like they have to buy shows that are just super
Yeah.
content aligned. And I always go back to the idea that when we're looking at success in advertising, we're looking at partnering with the
Mm-hmm.
right target audience, right? If you are selling a product and you know that middle-aged women are your target, it doesn't matter if you're talking about health and fitness or if you're talking about history or economics or comedy, right? If we know that a large middle-aged women group listen to the show, you're going to see success there. Now, granted, obviously, there are a lot of other factors when it comes to creating a target. You might see that maybe the target customer is more into health, or maybe they're more into travel, or maybe they're at a certain household income or education level, right? Those are all factors that go into play. But the content itself doesn't have to be perfectly aligned in order to see success. And I think that that is an important message for both the podcaster and the advertiser.
And I think like which is another, going back to my ever present love of the podcast survey, like that's a great, and that's also where host feedback comes into play. Like that's where
Mhm.
like getting audience response and also, responding to inquiries around advertising with like very specifics is being able to say, hi, our show is not necessarily to, we have a middle-aged female audience. Our show is not necessarily geared towards travel, but we've seen from our survey when we've talked to our audience that like they are really excited about traveling. We get a lot of
Mhm.
responses that are people are listening to this while driving, while flying, while at the airport. Like we know that there is an audience here. Our audience has conveyed to us that they like travel. And so if you are a travel brand, like being able to give that specificity, I think like conveys that to advertiser and often makes the show really stand out when it comes to pitching themselves to an advertiser in particular.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. So, as we think about, I guess, just the different genres in podcasting, do you see that there is, maybe a growing demand either from the talent side or the advertiser side? Like, what genres are of most interest right now?
So I kind of gestured towards it earlier, but like the big five in our world, the ones that like we've seen sell extremely consistently, are, business shows. You get your health and wellness shows. Sports is always going to sell well. Comedy and then true crime are all like very reliable sellers. And then
Hmm.
kind of you gestured towards this earlier. A big trend that we've seen from the talent side is, podcasting has existed now for 20 plus years. And in that time, like the interview format has become very expected or very standardized. And so we're seeing a lot of creators really break out of that and evolve that interview format, I think, in really cool and exciting ways, which also pairs a little bit with what we've seen on the advertiser side, which is the thing that has grown really across genres is evergreen content like that.
Hmm.
Like advertisers are so eager to find shows that, because the nature of dynamic advertising is you might be advertising on a podcast from 2 years ago. And so like advertising on shows that have that evergreen value, advertisers are really looking for that opportunity to say, hey, I want to make sure that like people are going to find where we're placing our ads, so that
Hmm.
evergreen content that is like as relevant now as it will be 2 years from now is really really valuable, and there's a really big demand for that. And that pairs really nicely with people who are like looking at this established format in podcasting and going, how do I blow this up a little bit? And how do I approach like the interview format, which is, one of the most evergreen formats you can muster, and say,
Hmm.
how do I do this in a way that feels new and current and engaging in ways that we've never really considered before?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I wanted to do this interview. Number one, just wanted to kind of introduce you, because you have been an important part of the team. But I also wanted to do the interview because I think it's really important for advertisers to understand the process that we go through when we're looking to
Sure.
represent podcasts and the real value that that podcast relationship can bring and how much effort and thought we put into it. So when we're looking to onboard a show at True Native Media, what does that look like? And what are just, I guess, some kind of key aspects of that?
Sure. From the day we sign the contract, we always say there's about like a 30-day window from signed contract through booked campaign. And the goal of that process and the reason that that window exists is for us to collect everything that we need to put the most compelling pitch in front of an advertiser, and for us to get to know you as content creator as thoroughly as possible so that we can set you up for as much success as we can. So, that begins with, we've got kind of some like forms and some automated information gathering that like we collect about
Mhm.
not just the stuff that we need from a legal and an operations perspective, but questions about you, like, hey, do you have pets? Like, what's your living situation like? Things that we can kind of like zero in on and spot those brand opportunities. There's some meetings with me where I introduce you to the operations team and I kind of say, this is who is going to be like managing the campaign work on the back end so that you can get a handle on the process, so that we can really set you up to respond to things quickly, so that if you see an email come through, you know to respond to it right away. Something new that we've taken on, or that like we recently refreshed in 2025, is setting up kind of pre-approval forms or pre-approval surveys for our most
Mhm.
frequent ad partners, so that we can say, hey, we're running a campaign for some of our like frequent brands. If you're interested, just mark yes once, and then we have it on record, and we will just assume that you are interested in this advertiser for every time we book this campaign, which might be once a month for the foreseeable future. Like, we go to certain advertisers so frequently that it just makes sense to immediately ask, hey, are you cool with this? Like, are you interested? Great, we'll move forward. Obviously, then the next part of that process is like, alongside that, we're migrating your show to our hosting platform, which gives us some advantages around pixel tracking things on the back end. It also allows us to set you up with our programmatic opportunities, which like we've really set that up for as much success as we can. And all of that information is then passed to our sales team with the goal of, they're absorbing all of this information. They're getting to know you via the forms that you submit. They're seeing your responses to questions. They're hearing about the meetings that you're in. And what the goal of all of that is to get to know you on such a thorough level that we can spot kind of the ads that we've been talking about, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
spot those ads that are not just show relevant, but are beneath the surface and are for you. I always say in conversations with podcasters that like the biggest moment of success for us is when we have that snap moment of that's the opportunity. That's
Mm-hmm.
the sales. That's the advertiser that they're going to go wild for. And so all of our like forms and approvals and meetings is all about like giving the sales team as much information as they can so that they can knock on a door for an advertiser and go, I have the perfect opportunity. This is a dream
Mm-hmm.
partnership.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Love it. Yeah. And I love that you outlined that in so much detail because for us, it is just so important that the shows that we represent, that we know them inside and out, that we're creating really strong partnerships because at the end of the day, I just look at True Native Media as being a matchmaking company, right? Like we've got the podcaster, we've got the advertiser, and it's our job to make the strongest connection possible so that both parties are really happy with the results that we produce, which is, a lot of fun. So if somebody's listening and they're like, "Hey, I'd be really interested in working with True Native Media. I'm a podcaster, maybe as we've discussed, either big or small. What's a good way for them to get in touch with us?"
You can reach us at our website at truenativemedia.com. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, which is always a great way for you to send questions or talk to me about the process. I can always pass along, any relevant forms or give you my email, but connect with us on the website. We've got some forms on there for if you're a podcaster looking for representation. It kind of allows us to like collect that info. And then, yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn, Jeff Stormer. That way I can always answer questions, book a meeting with you, and we can kind of start the conversation from there.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show today, Jeff.
This was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening. I hope that you have enjoyed this episode. It's always fun to really talk about that podcaster relationship and how we are building it here at True Native Media. If you want to connect further with the show, you can head on over to YouTube where we are posting our videos, and we will catch you again next time. Thank you for listening to the Podcast Advertising Playbook, your source to a better understanding of the podcast advertising industry.